Now that you understand the basics of how ASP.NET Core MVC handles routing, let us take a look at how we can add navigation to our site, and for that we will use tag helpers. For the user to be able to navigate, we need to have the correct links that, when clicked, will send a request to the server that will then be handled by the routing system we just looked at. We don't need to generate or write these links ourselves. Based on the routes we have defined in the application, will ASP.NET Core MVC generate the correct ones. To generate the outgoing link correctly, code will need to run that generates the correct link. We have already seen how we can use Razor code, and that indeed executes on the server and generates HTML. To generate the link though, we'll use a feature known as tag helpers. On the snippet here, you can see an anchor tag, so an A. Inside the opening tag, I've now added what looks like two new attributes. The first one, ASP controller, is set to Pi, and the second one, ASP action, is set to list. These extra attributes are tag helpers, and they will help to create the correct link to navigate to the list action on the Pi controller. And before we dive any deeper into this, what are tag helpers really then? A tag helper consists out of markup code that will execute server-side. When we use it in our markup code, it'll trigger the execution of code. This way, from Razor code, we can trigger certain functionality to happen. The good thing about tag helpers is that they look and feel like plain HTML, making the code easy to read. Tag helpers replace the old HTML helpers, although these can still be used. Using a tag helper, though, will result in much cleaner Razor HTML than the old HTML helpers. It is also possible to create a custom tag helper. They are an extension point, and we'll see that later in this course. The reason I am now all of a sudden explaining you tag helpers at this point is that we will be using tag helpers for navigation. We will see through the course of the following modules that they are often used for other tasks as well. Here's that snippet that we already saw once again, but let's now look at it in some more detail. I'm creating a link using a plain anchor tag, so an A. I want to have ASP.NET Core generate the link based on the route or routes I've defined in my application. I can do this using a tag helper, in fact two tag helpers. The ASP controller tag helper is set to Pi and the ASP action tag helper is set to list. As mentioned, tag helpers trigger the execution of code. So when this code runs, it'll trigger code that will look at the routes we have in our application and based on these, generate the correct outgoing link. This is the generated code for the link we have just created. Based on the routes we have in our application, the correct link will be generated because of tag helpers. The link indeed navigates to the list action on the Pi controller. And to bring in support for tag helpers into our application, we'll need to call add tag helper. We can do that in every file where we want to use tag helpers, but there's a better way. Remember that we have earlier in this course already added the view imports file? Its purpose is bringing in the namespaces and directives globally within the application, so we don't have to call it in every page. Here you can see the updated view imports file, where I've now added a call to add tag helper. To add tag helper, we say using an asterisk, so a wildcard that all tag helpers in the assembly microsoft.asp.NET Core.mvc.tag helpers should be made available. Since this code is in the view imports, the tag helpers will become available in all views in one go. And to cover all we need to do around navigation, ASP.NET Core MVC comes with some more tag helpers. We've already seen ASP controller and ASP action. We also get the ASP route asterisk tag helper, where we can replace the asterisk with the name of the parameter, for example ID, and pass it a value. The ASP route tag helper can be used to force ASP.NET Core to use a specific route by name.